Tonight, we're going to talk about a bunch of different things. I want to talk about one of my students who picked up a $7,200 property at the tax deed auction. I've had, and that wasn't an anomaly, by the way. It wasn't like this one case where somebody got a property for $7,200 and every other house is sold for $300,000 plus. I've had lots of students get stuff under $10,000, under $15,000, under $20,000, and I can tell you that this doesn't have to. Even if you have lots of money, great. There's going to be lots of opportunity. But even if you have very little money, even if you have no money, some of the stuff that I teach is, well, how do you go get other people to fund your deals for you? So you can actually do this stuff using not just your own money, but you can use other people's money. And I'm going to try to talk a little bit about that tonight. When the last big recession was starting to unfold, and we were starting to see a ton of foreclosures hitting the market, I basically set up a company that I called Foreclosure Fixers back in the day. And Foreclosure Fixers, we would actually send out flyers to lists similar to this, and we would say, we can help you stay in your home. Now, a lot of you have seen those postcards. Maybe some of you send those postcards that say, we pay cash for homes, or we buy ugly homes, or whatever you're sending, we buy ugly homes, whatever it is that you're sending out, that's great. If you send out enough of them, those absolutely work. People will respond to them. But if you send out something saying, hey, I can help stop your foreclosure, that's going to get a lot of people very, very interested, especially when they're at the very, very tail end of losing their property. Now, you have to remember, these people for the last 3 years, maybe 3 or 4 years, they've been receiving letters regularly from the county saying, hey, you owe us money, you owe us money, you owe us money. And if you don't pay, we're going to put your home up for auction. Well, after 2 or 3 years, you think they're never going to put my home for auction. They're just going to keep saying that, and you don't really take it seriously. All of a sudden, when they say, hey, your home's going for auction in 3 weeks, now you start to take things seriously. And people that quite often were too embarrassed to go ask their friends or family for money prior, all of a sudden they're scrambling to try and get this money. But a lot of them can't get it, and they are going to lose their homes. And so as problem solvers, we can, and by the way, I didn't just put that just to get into people's homes that I can help stop a foreclosure. I actually hired an attorney who taught me the foreclosure laws inside and out, and I knew how to stall foreclosures. Sometimes I would actually I'll talk about that in a second, but I would actually help people stay in their home by paying off their arrears. And this is stuff that you can, this is stuff that you absolutely, every single person here can do. So the first part of the trifecta is getting a hold of these homeowners, letting them know that you have a solution, and pretty much any solution that you come up with is better than them losing their home at the auction. So there's 2 different types of people that would respond to my marketing. The first type of person, I like to say sometimes bad things happen to good people. And I can't think of a time in history more than now where more, good people are being affected by, obviously, COVID, not just for their health, and losing friends and family, but their businesses are shut down, they're losing their jobs, and people that never even were 1 day late on making a credit card payment in the past. All of a sudden, when you lose your business, what do? You can't get blood from a stone. Where's the money going to come from? So there's a lot of people right now that have, they had perfect credit going into COVID, and now they're struggling. And so people like that, though, imagine they lost their job, and you find out after they respond to your marketing, you find out that, hey, well, I lost my job for like a year, but now I'm working again and I can afford the monthly payments. I just can't afford to come up with the arrears and pay off the arrears. Well, for people like that, back in the day, I would loan them money, pay off their arrears. They could stay in their home and they would pay me off in installments. And of course, I'd make some interest, so it's a win for me. And they wouldn't lose their home, so big win for them. And it allowed me to get to these people before it ever went to the auction block. Because so many people, they look at that list and they start scouring it and figure out what they're going to bid on at the auction. And that's great. You can absolutely make money doing that. But if I can get these people before it ever even goes to auction, that's a big win for them and also a win for me. Now, as I mentioned, there's 2 types of people that will respond to my ads. The first one, as I mentioned, are the people that, good people, just bad circumstances. There's also people that tend to live beyond their means. And those are people that it's just a ticking time bomb. It was just a matter of time till they lost their home. And those aren't people you want to loan money to. If you loan money to those people to pay off their arrears, you're never going to see that money again. You're just giving them a short-term Band-Aid. They're going to burn through your money and their home's going to go back on the auction block. And so for people like that, I would give them what I call soft landing. And soft landing, what that means is, I'd be sitting across somebody who's desperate and I could easily take advantage of them. But instead, I'd always make sure that they had money to get a damage deposit to get wherever they need to go, several months rent, money for food. So I wouldn't get the home run, but I'd make it would be a win for me. Definitely I'd get to second base. They'd get a big win because we could sometimes save their credit. Sometimes we could, I would put them in one of my other properties that was a rent to own that was more affordable, and I'd help them get back on their feet again. And the great thing about that, like I said, I wasn't getting the home runs because I always would do what was best for the client. But these people, imagine they lost their job. They probably worked with 10 other people that also lost their jobs. And so after a while, I didn't have to send out the marketing anymore because the people that I was helping, they were referring all their friends to me that were in the same boat as them. And then some of the lenders started to notice, because some of them weren't tax deed foreclosures, they were bank foreclosures. And so all of a sudden, this bank that had been chasing, especially private lenders that had been chasing after people for months and months and months and couldn't get a dime from them, all of a sudden we're paying them off in full. And these lenders would come to me and say, hey, listen, we've got like 50 other people in the same boat as this person. How can you help them? And so when you do things properly and you help other people and you look after their interests first, it's going to come back. I totally believe in karma. Always comes back. So even though you could have got a bigger paycheck on that one property, I'd rather get medium-sized paychecks on 20 or 30 properties. So that's the first part of the trifecta. And most people don't know how to do this. They don't even know that's a possibility. And so it's just trying to get a hold of the people before the auction takes place. And I can tell you that's extremely lucrative. Like I said, it took on a life of its own. We got really, really busy. We helped a lot of homeowners back in the days. And I was actually thinking of starting up foreclosure fixers again when COVID was starting to shut down businesses. And then I thought, well, it'd be way better if it's, instead of me just starting up foreclosure fixers, if I taught 100 people how to do that, and what kind of impact could they have? We had 100 people doing that strategy. How many people could we help during these crazy times? So that's the first part of the trifecta. The second part of the trifecta is the auction itself. Now, once again, you want to make sure you know what you're doing. You don't want to just show up. I can tell you, I could spend hours just telling you horror stories of what I've witnessed at these auctions. But I remember I'll tell you one story. So shortly before COVID, there was a tax deed auction that made the news because it was in Fort Lauderdale. The person who won, if you want to say won, person who was a high bidder on the property thought he was buying this really nice villa. And I'm just making up numbers, but it was approximately, let's say, $250,000. And he got it for $11,000. And he thought he just hit the jackpot. He thought he won the lottery. And he found out afterwards that he didn't actually buy the villa that he thought. He actually bought, there were two side-by-side villas. They were attached. And between them, there was a 100-foot strip of land. It was 100 feet long and like a foot wide. And it was just separating the two properties. That's all it was. There's nothing you could do with that land. So the builder, of course, didn't want to pay the property taxes on it because they couldn't sell it. There's nothing they could do with it. They just stopped paying their taxes. So this person ended up being the high bidder on it. He thought he got a smoking deal until he found out that he got this useless piece of land. And he tried to sue the county. He was complaining, saying, "Oh, you misled me, and you should have warned me, and there should have been pictures just of the land, not these villas." Anyway, he lost. And it's very unfortunate because if he knew what he was doing, in a lot of counties, for example, if the address, and you want to write this down, if the address starts with a 0, if it's 0 Main Street, that means you're buying a piece of land. You're not buying an actual home. So it said 0, whatever the street was. And he ended up getting that property that I'm sure is now still stuck with, and he's got $11,000. So, but I see things like this happen all the time at these auctions. And so you just have to really know what you're doing before you go to them. I'm going to give you some more pointers in general. Some of the things you want to look out for, just like that tip I just gave you, if it starts with a 0, make sure that you know that you're buying land. You're not buying a home. You're not buying whatever is in that picture. You might not be buying unless it just shows a piece of land. So another thing you want to do, as I mentioned earlier, is every single property you've got to view it. It doesn't have to be you, but you have to have boots on the ground. You have to have somebody that goes to look at the property, because you never know what it looks like now. Maybe a beautiful picture from 2 years ago. Obviously, a lot of these homes are sitting vacant. Sometimes they're vacant for a long time, and there's damage that can be done. Sometimes they don't exist anymore. Sometimes there's smoldering ashes where that home used to be. So don't ever buy a home sight unseen. The other thing you got to do, one of the really cool things about these auctions is that all the liens in theory drop off. And so what I mean by that, if there was a mortgage on there, well, what happens is the county has to notify the lenders. They have to notify every single person on title, hey, this home is going for auction on October 3rd, and you have an opportunity to bail it out so it doesn't go for auction. But if the property taxes aren't paid, then you're going to get wiped out. And so sometimes lenders will, a bank will pay off the arrears to protect their mortgage, and these homes won't go on the auction block. But we need to make sure that all the parties were notified, because let's say Bank of America had a mortgage on a property. If they weren't notified, they can come back later and say, hey, we weren't notified, we want the auction annulled. And they're going to sue everybody. They're going to sue the auction house, they're going to sue the county, they're going to sue you, even though you didn't do anything wrong, you just bought the property. Their lawyers will spare no expense to go after everybody to get that property back and reinstate their mortgage. And now, even if you don't have to pay the bank if you don't have to pay the bank any money, well, now that property that you thought you were going to flip is tied up in a legal battle for who knows how long. So there's things that you need to be able to, you need to know how to check title. You need to know how to see who was notified. If you don't know how to do that stuff's going to come back to haunt you. So there's a lot of things that you need to learn before you ever go to a live auction. So I know a lot of people, after this, are going to start looking up these properties. They're going to get excited, and then you're going to jump the gun. Don't do that. The reason I'm teaching this, I can't, the training itself that I do is 4 days long for a reason. There's a lot of content in there. It's not, anybody who's been there will tell you it's not filler and it's not rah jumping up and down stuff. This is actual 4 days of content. And I can't teach you 4 days of content in 90 minutes, but I just want to let you know that this opportunity exists, because I didn't know for many, many years. And if it's something that interests you, I can help you, or go learn from someone that you trust, but make sure you don't just show up at the auction, because you will have a very expensive lesson. All right. And then actually, before I do that, I want to talk about the third part. We didn't get to the third part of the trifecta. So here's another strategy that almost nobody knows about, and it's called overages. And what that means, it can also be called excess funds. There's other names for it depending on which county you're looking at. So most people don't know this, but when you go to that auction, if you're the high bidder, and once again, we'll pick on Ali again, sorry buddy, but he didn't pay his taxes. Let's say that usually by the time it becomes a tax deed, it's more than $1,000. Let's call it $5,000. So the opening bid is $5,000, and goes back and forth, gets bid up to $50,000, and we'll use Wendy because I see her on my screen. So Wendy is the high bidder. She gets this property for $50,000, and she now owns it free and clear. She did all her homework. All the liens disappeared. It's exactly textbook how it was supposed to work. Well, what most people don't know, that first $5,000, that belongs to the county fair and square. But the additional $45,000, remember she bid 50, so that additional $45,000, that does not actually belong to the county. That actually belongs to the previous homeowner, and most homeowners have no clue that this money is owed to them. And so they, the county makes very little attempt to track these people down, because that's their slush fund. If nobody claims it, they get to keep it. And there's a statute of limitations. There's a certain amount of time that homeowner has, and that statute of limitations will vary from county to county. But once that statute of limitations runs up, the county gets to keep that money and do whatever they want with it. And it really bugs me, because if you go into a 7-Eleven store and steal a candy bar, they're going to take you downtown and fingerprint you. If the government steals billions of dollars, there's so much money in these excess funds and overages accounts that are never been claimed. That's perfectly fine, apparently. So it really bugs me. So a really cool strategy is, and you can do this whether you win at the auction or lose at the auction, whether you did the first part of the trifecta, whether you managed to track them down or not. You can do all these independently of each other, or you can do all three. So the third part of the strategy, the overages, is to find these homeowners and say, listen, I know somebody who owes you $45,000. And if you're willing to share some of that with me, I'm willing to help you. I'll do all the paperwork. I'll help you retrieve that money. And that's a great win-win. Imagine somebody who just lost their home. Ali just lost home over $5,000. How significant would $45,000 or whatever portion that he gets to keep of that, how significant would that be? How much is that going to change his life? This is somebody that is either probably begging a friend or relative to let him stay on their sofa, or he's homeless. A lot of people end up homeless after losing their property, unfortunately. And so a great strategy is to try to track these people down. Now, it's not always easy. Sometimes you have to be a bit of a detective and you have to do some homework to find these people. But once you do, and I have a friend, this is her main career, she charges 40%. So in this case, you would have got 40% of the 45,000. So, but she usually does bigger ones. Her smallest paycheck actually has been, I think she said $21,000. She does a really large overages. And it's a great win though, because Ali's got some money in his pocket now. You get some money for helping him. And I know some of you are thinking, oh, I don't even want to take any money. Well, then what I'd say, because you feel bad, and I totally do too. So what you can do is do strategy number one, make lots of money there. Do strategy number two, make lots of money there. And then just contact the homeowners and let them know where the money sits. Most of these people have no clue it's owed to them. They wouldn't know how to get it even if they knew where the money was. And you get to be, once again, a problem solver. So these are, this is my single biggest secret, is to not just go for the tax deeds. Tax deeds are awesome, but do some of these other strategies. I know some of you are saying, well, that's great, Mike. I have very little money. I can't go help this person, the first part of the trifecta. How am I going to go and buy their home off them or give them that soft landing? Well, there's other strategies that I recommend you learn in conjunction with this. For example, wholesaling. I'm just going to give you a really quick rundown on wholesaling because this isn't my wholesaling webinar, but